Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is Two Back or Not to Back. We're going to be going through a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. We still have a lot of campaigns to go through, and yes, once again, I did push off 2 or 3 campaigns to next week as I continue to try to give you as much information as possible without making every single one of these videos at 1 hour and 15 minutes. People frequently ask me why I talk so fast, and it's because these 1 hour and 15 minute long videos would be 2 hours long if I slowed it down. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into it, starting off as always with our Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is where we remind you that you can go ahead and get whatever games you want currently now at retail. Sure, crowdfunding is great, there's all about the future, there's all these games that you're interested in, they're shiny, and speaking of shiny, we have Isla and Something Shiny currently available over our miniature market for $65. This is one that was available on crowdfunding, and they've partnered since with North Star Games, and now it's currently available. It's been getting a lot of rave opinions. There's someone in my Discord who already went through the game twice, very rapidly. It's one that I'm excited to dive into myself, and so if you're interested in something that's available now and you don't have to wait 1.5 years, you can check out currently available reviews right now. That's going to be Isla and Something Shiny, available from Miniature Market for $65. And from there, let's go ahead and dive into the campaigns, although as usual, of course, the regular disclaimer that I do work for Gamefound. Please take that into account. While this Two Back or Not to Back series has been going on the channel for 3.5, 4 years now, I did start working for Gamefound a year ago, and please take that and any potential bias into account as we go through these campaigns. And let's start us off the bat with both the ones that are not funding and the board game adjacent. We're going to blur them together today, and you'll see why. But we are starting off, we have Dragon Dice from Draco Lem. That's going to be $35,000 raised. That's going to be coming over on Gamefound, and that is one that's taking Dragon Dice, which is a system that's been around for quite some time, trying to give you a kind of a miniature game, but with a bunch of dice. Just a bunch of dice, the stats of the dice over there. This one likely will fund with $35,000 out of a $45,000 goal, and 22 days left to go. This is in the not yet funding category, more so than the not funding category. Will probably fund, but it's been around for a while. This 8.3 is subjective. It depends which set you click on. There's a bunch of sets to click on. There's the overarching property. So the ratings are a little bit more confusing as far as what it actually is. That said, it's been around for a while, it's well tested. If you're looking for a kind of miniature style game that uses dice more so than miniatures, that will be Dragon Dice over on Gamefound. We're also going to have Chaos Cove by Martin Wallace, going to be 8 games, $13,000 raised out of a $17,000 goal. Again, this likely will fund. With 15 days left to go, this is probably a safe bet. That said, Chaos Cove is going to be the newest Martin Wallace game, and I've seen a few people on the various Facebook forums saying, why isn't this funded yet? They just or some people didn't even know it existed. This is a Martin Wallace game, which on the one hand, Martin Wallace is generally, he's one of the designers of the most popular game in the world right now. That's going to be Brass Birmingham. He has done a ton of games, from A Few Acres of Snow to Steam to London to Anno 1800. There's so many games under his belt. He has done an absolute ton of amazing games that are well loved. I think what's putting people off is, I think arguably one of his least successful games is a game called Via Nebula, and this Chaos Cove has something in common with Via Nebula in the sense that they are both lighter games that have a very cartoony approach, which doesn't jive as much with the typical Martin Wallace crowd. When you have a designer who's known for his heavier games, and you bring a cartoonish approach to the table, and suddenly that target audience is almost inherently less interested in your game, and that, combined with the fact that it's been making the rounds less, there's not been as much coverage around the game, and it does mean that Chaos Cove may well be a fantastic game, but it is one that has been it's been having a harder time getting off the ground. Past that, this is a bit of a worker placement game. There's going to be 16 unique workers. You're going to have the opportunity to utilize all these workers throughout the course of the game as you try to build up your points in this. Lots of extras, lots of goodies, but again, we're not heavily going to go into it. I tend to not heavily go into campaigns that aren't yet funding. The cartoonish art doesn't bother me inherently, but I am in that, it's, I believe it's from the, oh my gosh, Mr. Cuddington, what's the first name? Oh my gosh, what's the, I'm going to blank on the first name, but Cuddington, whoever his first name is, I'm forgetting the first name, but either way, that's gonna be Chaos Cove over here, so it likely will fund, but we'll talk about it more then. And moving on over here, moving on to the one which is in the board game adjacent / not funding category. I wasn't sure the order to put these here. We have Ravaged Tabletop Miniature Wargame. This is very much in the board game adjacent category, which usually comes before the not funded category, but this one's also, it was all the 3 campaigns together. I wasn't sure how to order them, but either way, we have $743,000 raised. We have 1,400 backers. 2 days left to go. This one is like a week-long campaign. There were just last Tuesday on Gamefound, you had 3 large campaigns launch. We had Perserverance, Stars of Akarios, and Ravaged Stars. All of them launching on Tuesday, and all of them hitting 500,000 day one, but then they all end at different points and have seen different levels of success along that journey. But Ravaged Star, it's a week-long campaign. It's just, that's basically it, just maybe 8 days, whatever it is. It's going to be ending shortly, and this is bringing you a ton of miniatures as well as a wargaming system. It's coming to you from Mini Wargaming with the art and sculptors from Lazy Squire Games, but Mini Wargaming is their own channel, and this page, by the way, this page is chock full of 1,000,000 miniatures. I'm not going to heavily go into everything here because, I mean, honestly, this page would be a long time just by itself to go through it, but I think it shows you every single one of like the 500 unique miniatures on this page as you scroll through it. But basically they have new factions. So there's original the Ravaged Star campaign, which is just miniatures. This one, Ravaged Star, gives you new factions, but also gives you an actual game behind it. The first campaign is pure miniatures. Do use them for what you want, use them for painting or for other game systems, but there was no game behind it. This time around they are adding a game, as well as more factions. We have the, bugs, we have the dwarfs, we have a ton of miniatures and tanks and all these various things. There's unboxing videos, there's so much stuff to go through on this campaign. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do a slow drag through it to show you just how much stuff there is across the course of the campaign. I'm going to keep scrolling, and you're going to think I'm going to be done, but I'm not going to be done. I'm just going to keep scrolling and keep scrolling. It's going to be quiet now. That was me scrolling down the entire time. There was no going back up. It was me scrolling down. There's a ton of things on this campaign page. And pledge levels-wise, you're looking at a lot of potential spending because $949 is not even the all-in pledge. The all-in is going to run you, where are we over here? If we scroll down, the all-in is going to run you $1,549 if you just don't want to think about it and you want all 465 miniatures, 60 dice, and more. If you just want a simple all-in for $1,500, which 89 people have currently taken, that's going to be Ravaged Star, tabletop miniature game, wargame from Mini Wargaming. And that brings us to Mint Mobile, who I've partnered with once again because they currently have a special promotion going on, a special promotion that you'll have to use the link down below to access. It will not currently be on the main site, at least not yet, but this promotion is going to be running until December 11th. And basically, it's if you sign up now, you'll get an additional 3 months free. They already have premium wireless for $15 a month, but if you sign up for a 3-month plan, you'll get an additional 3 months, which basically means you're getting 6 months for the price of 3, which makes it a great time to try and go ahead and sign up and see if it's a plan that's right for you. I actually switched to Mint Mobile roughly a year ago for a plan like this. I think there was this exact plan that had me switching over to them to see if they were right for me, and then months later they reached out to start working with me, but by then I had already been using them for several months and was very happy with the service. The short version is if you're looking to save money while making sure all your wireless needs are covered, Mint Mobile is something that's definitely worth checking out. Make sure to use my link below, both so that they know I sent you, but also because right now you can't get access to this otherwise. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the active campaign, starting off with Moonrakers. That's not true. Starting off with Moon, a deluxe reprint, although there is a Moonrakers kind of expansion and Moon Rollers thing kind of coming up, going over on Backkit. Make sure to check that out. But Moon, deluxe reprint, Moon playmat, and coin chests. 2,100 backers, 3 days to go. This is coming to you from Sinister Fish Games. This is both a reprint of the Moon Deluxe Edition, while also giving you opportunities to go ahead and get their coin chests for various other games they have. So you have the coin chest for Villagers, you have the coin chest for Streets, and you have the coin chest for... I'm not entirely sure what this one is. I don't know if this goes for anything in particular. And then you have the coin chest for sci-fi type, cyberpunk compatible with many tabletop games, including Moon, I assume. But basically, it's going to be 4 different coin sets, as well as a reprint for Moon. That's going to come to you from Sinister Fish Games. And the price on this over here is we have for 20, no, not there. Scroll down over here. We have the coin chest for £20 each. And then we have, scrolling down, we have for £45, we have the Moon Deluxe Edition over there. And for £70, you get all the coins, so you get to save £10 on that. And then Moon, the whole of Moon for £90, giving you all stuff for Moon. The playmat that I think includes the playmat as well, I'm not sure. And then all the things for £160 if you want all of that. Which means the whole should you back or should you not. Moon is basically a drafting game. It's often compared to Seven Wonders. It takes place across 3 rounds. You're drafting cards, trying to build out your Moon civilization in the game. Past that, though, it's generally been a well-rated system. As far as the should you back or should you not will hold its value, it's okay. Generally, I find that the games over on Kickstarter, once you pay the shipping to get the game, combined with the price that goes for on the secondhand market, they're generally not as worth it to get it on Kickstarter so much as getting it on retail. You might not get all the extras and the goodies, but you save a significant amount more, and getting on Kickstarter generally won't hold its value. A big part of it is the shipping just cuts into those margins. Obviously, as usual, with most of the stuff I'm giving over here, it is a very US-centric approach, and everything does change depending on where you are. I know that in particular, Sinister Fish Games generally has much better rates when you're shipping it to England as opposed to, overseas. From there, we're going to have Timelancers, a time travel board game. 470 backers, $23,000 raised, 8 days to go. Timelancers coming to you from Wandling Panda Games. This is actually a relaunch of the game, but Timelancers has you traveling through history as you revise history to try to get as many points and gain control of the future. Basically, you're going to have these cards you're going to be getting in the game, but you also have the opportunity to mess with the timeline that's going to have players rotating cards. It's going to force the other players to rotate cards, to shift tiles on the board, and so there's a real impact as far as the game state and how the game state is affected with this time travel-esque mechanic. And this is one of the games, if you go through the testimonials, if you go through the people covering the game, many people cover a lot of games, there's previewers, there's reviewers, there's all these people getting their hands on the game, but usually you can tell when there's an undercurrent of additional excitement for a game that goes past, you know, hey, a bunch of people signed up to cover the game, and that's very much present in Timelancers. This is not a game I've had the chance to play myself, so I can't comment on that, but if you look at a lot of people who are very interested and excited for this game, more so than usual, from people who don't usually express that level of excitement, that's usually something to pay attention to to see if this is a game that might be a little better than your average crowdfunding game. Again, I have not played it, I'm just saying I get that sense, that undercurrent, from people covering the game. Perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps not, I don't know, but that's going to be Timelancers over here, a time travel board game. The pledge level for the game is going to run you $39 for the Timelancers Kickstarter edition, and then Timelancers with the playmat for $49 for the game, then of course shipping on top of that. As far as the should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? This is going to be true for a lot of campaigns that we go through today, but basically short version is there's not a ton of demand for the game. With 470 backers, it means it's going to be a game that is harder to get your hands on otherwise. There will likely not be a wide retail release, so if you want to guarantee availability, crowdfunding is the best choice. But also that lower demand does translate into less of a demand on the secondhand market, which means it's likely one that you will not be getting your money back, especially once you factor in the shipping costs over there. That's going to be Timelancers, so if you're interested in it, may well be your best opportunity to get your hands on it, but less likely to be one that's holding its value. Then we have Charcuterie. Charcuterie the board game, coming to you from 3WS, the Third World Studios, 3WS over here. But Charcuterie the board game is going to be a game of trying to match various goals or take into account various goals as the leading player takes opportunities to be able to pile the various ingredients, the cheese, the meats, all the things on the board in stacks, and having the players kind of an I cut, you choose mechanism where other players will be gathering those, placing them onto their own charcuterie board, and trying to match things up as you go through it to match the various goals in play. It's a bit chaos, there's not like a grid, but the flip side is you can rearrange things however you want, so you don't have to overly worry about it. Rearrange things as you need to, as you try to get these goals taken care of in the game. That's basically Charcuterie. If you played any of these point scoring optimization games, this very much has that puzzle to it as you go through it, but past that, there's not really a deluxe edition over here. There's just a retail edition of the game over here. We have a simply $5 for the print and play, we have $29 for the board game, and then $56 for 2 board games. That's all we have. It's a very straight, simple offering over here. $29 to get your hands on the game with a $39 MSRP. The tricky part there is once you factor in shipping, you're not really getting any savings at all. In fact, you're paying more for the game. So the game looks fun. I haven't played it. I have no clue if it's going to be better or worse than your average point scoring optimization system, but it does look like a very unique theme, and it does look very appealing just from that alone. And so if the game is good, it's already on a win just because of the combination of theme and mechanics. The tricky part as far as where to get it is paying $29 plus the shipping makes it so that it's just cheaper to get the hands on retail down the road. This is one that waiting until it shows up in retail, for most people, will be the best way to get your hands on Charcuterie, because getting on Kickstarter, you're just paying more. You are supporting the publisher, take that into account. You might be getting it earlier, but you're certainly paying more for it to get it on crowdfunding. Which brings us to VÁLKA. VÁLKA over here coming to you from Terrible Games, whose games supposedly are not terrible, according to their own statement. Not Terrible Games. Yeah, Terrible Games. There was Horrible. It used to be Horrible Games, and they changed it to Horrible Guild because of that association that's just there, which I think Horrible Games is better, but hey, I don't make the marketing decisions. We have Terrible Games over here. 1,047 backers, $32,000 raised. VÁLKA is going to be both a head-to-head multiplayer experience as well as a solo experience that both run around the same core concept of drafting various cards that have various stats in them, trying to utilize those cards and buff those cards with various things in the game as you either are going head-to-head against other players, managing your front line, your back line, trying to pair up a guild as you take down your opponents by rolling dice and attacking each other, utilizing your boosts and trying to outmaneuver each other in a head-to-head experience. Or alternatively, you're going on a solo puzzle instead, where you're taking those characters and trying to go through 5 different realms and 5 different decks of cards, trying to power through, managing your stamina, managing your rerolls, managing all the bad things that are trying to happen to you across the course of the game. They utilize the same overarching system, but are very different feelings as far as the solo experience versus the multiplayer head-to-head experience. And that's going to be VÁLKA from Terrible Games. The games over here is going to give you, it's going to be a $29 pledge, I believe, $29 for the Kickstarter edition, and that's going to give you all the stuff, all the actual game itself, but additionally it's going to give you a few extras if we can scroll down and find them here. Some extras are thrown in over here that are going to be, well, there are paid add-ons as well, but there are some extra card packs that would otherwise cost money that we're factoring in there. But of course, shipping is going to be the big thing as usual, which can run you $14 on a $29 game, which means even though you are getting a good price and some extras, once you factor in the shipping, it's just a harder ask. And the Terrible Games, they do have a presence at retail, and with 1,000 backers already, I think this likely will have a retail presence. Of course, it's never a guarantee, which is why the FOMO always works in the sense that, hey, if you absolutely want to guarantee you get your hands on this one, crowdfunding is the best way to do so. But if your concern is cost or will it hold its value, I'd probably recommend waiting to down the road to either get it at retail or to get on the secondhand market. It's always hard for smaller games to really hit things because of the shipping is such a huge dent. You know, that $20 shipping on a $100 all-in is nowhere near the same level of impact as $14 shipping on a $29 pledge. It's just a much harder thing to deal with, and it's the price of dealing with small games, unfortunately. So that's going to be VÁLKA. Then we have Alpenglow. Build the next big ski resort. 776 backers, $47,000 raised, 9 days to go. Alpenglow is a game about managing a ski resort. That's the core idea over here. You're going to be managing all these various people who are coming to the ski resort, transporting them to the ski resort, and then trying to have them use the various lines, paying you in dollars or points as you build out a more efficient ski resort. More lines, more transportation, more everything as you try to build up and manage your own ski resort as efficiently as possible. The pledge levels over here are going to be $59 for a core copy of the game with a $75 MSRP, and of course, same thing, there's a discount there, but of course you have to factor in shipping, so that discount kind of becomes a wash as you go through it, and then past that, there's just a retail pledge. Which means, once again, we're kind of in the same picture that we have been for a few games already, and we will be for a few more as we go through these campaigns, which is, it's not a bad price, it's just that the tricky part is, it's just not a great reason to get this on crowdfunding now, as opposed to waiting till retail. 775 backers, 9 days to go, means this will hit over 1,000 copies sold, likely. And that does mean that there likely will be a retail presence, may not be large or whatnot, but this is one that likely will have some degree of retail presence. So as usual, the question is, if you want to guarantee it, get it at crowdfunding, but alternatively, you can get it likely cheaper at retail, and almost certainly cheaper on the secondhand market. This is one that is less likely to hold its value. Moving on, we have Stars of Akarios of 1.5 plus new content over on Gamefound from Open Owl Studios. This is $510,000 raised, 2,900 backers, 11 days left to go. Stars of Akarios is both a 1.5 edition as well as new content. A disclaimer before we dive into this, that Board Game Co. did do paid content around the game. Please take that into account as we go through it. But Stars of Akarios over here is going to be an epic cooperative sci-fi adventure. Effectively, it's Gloomhaven in space, which is the thing it's most been compared to because it's Gloomhaven plus a dash of 7th content plus a dash of Tainted Grail, although I will say the Tainted Grail stuff has been replaced in the 1.5 edition. Instead of having a world map of cards that you're trying to explore the galaxy, you'll instead have this galaxy book or galaxy guide, something. There's a new galaxy thing that replaces the Tainted Grail cards, so now you're still going to have the epic space combat that is Gloomhaven, but very different. It's very much its own different beast. There's obvious comparisons to Gloomhaven there at the same time, but it's going to be your epic space combat with a few planet explorations, and then instead you're going to have a galaxy book that is how you deal with going around the universe, choosing your next quest and all that, in a degree of choose your own adventure as you try to choose how these quests, how you go from one quest to the next, what choices you make. Do you transport something? Do you guard that? Do you return here? All leading you on different various space exploration, space skirmishes that you'll have to deal with in the game. The 1.5 over here is going to be a few things over here. And again, I did a full video, or Meg did a full video on the channel explaining the 1.5 and the new content, or full is a relative term because we didn't have an actual prototype, so it's an overview of the new stuff. But the 1.5 is going to be replacing a bunch of the cards with new graphic design and tweaked balances. The overall scenarios and guides and books and everything is going to be tweaked, so the very scenario book, you're getting an entirely new scenario book if you get the upgrade pack, and the 1.5 edition just has that built in. But if you get that, you're getting entirely tweaked scenarios and updated scenarios, so they are slightly harder. People wanted harder, and they are indeed now harder. You're going to have a new storybook. You're going to have that galaxy book over here, this battle book. Nope, that's not the right thing. There's going to be a galaxy book or whatnot. There's going to be starting loadouts for the characters, a bunch of new things in the 1.5. You're also going to have 2 expansions, the Battles of Akarios and the Drones of Akarios. The Drones of Akarios are going to give you the drone mechanic as well as its own separate storyline to deal with that. The Battles of Akarios are going to give you one-shot adventures with a different way of as far as how you deal with upgrading and building out your characters. So you are upgrading your ships in-game as opposed to in between games because of the nature of being a one-shot. So there's a whole different mechanic for how that works. But past that, it's basically custom one-shot scenarios. So if you just want to play Stars of Akarios, but you don't have to deal with the campaign sign-up of it, or if you just want to see if it's a game system for you, and you want to see if your friend's going to join you and get a sense for that space combat, then Battles of Akarios will very much give you that as you go through it. So that's going to be all the content for the game, which brings us to the pledges over here. We have a $200 gameplay pledge. We have a $100 everything new pledge. It's going to give you the 1.5 upgrade pack, everything new gameplay. That's going to give you the 1.5 update pack and the 2 expansions. We have $130 for the standard game. That's going to be the 1.5 game. We have $160 for everything new, which is giving you all the new gameplay, plus the Terrain of Akarios. I think it's called the Terrain of Akarios. And we have the ultimate pledge for $310 and the all-in pledge for $370. I feel like pledges get crazier and crazier. Like, the ultimate pledge is not the all-in pledge. The all-in pledge needs its own name, the all-in pledge, and sometimes the all-in pledge is not even the all-in pledge, although today, at least today, it seems to be. be. Let's go through it and see if we can find out. But anyways, over here, is it the all-in? Does it give us everything? Does it give you the neoprene mat and all? It gives you the neoprene mat, the art book, the journal. Is there anything missing? Is this in it? I don't know. This add-on is only for those who did not receive in the 1.0 campaign. I'd have to like really dive into it. Extra ship stands, either way. That's going to be the all-in price for $370. And there's a whole lot of expansions over here for like, you know, if you want to break down, if you want that upgrade pack, it's going to cost you $40. The various individual expansions if you want to build out your own bundles and all of that. But that is basically Stars of Akarios in a fairly small nutshell, but like an overall nutshell. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Short version is likely not. Looking at the original Stars of Akarios, which was, I believe, $130 if I'm not mistaken, but if you look at the copies sold on the secondhand market, for the most part, they're selling for less than what people paid for them. Meaning this is a game that is not selling for, you know, $130 or $150 or $160. It's frequently selling for anywhere between $90 to $120, which means it's definitely taking a hit. How much of a hit does range person by person. And that's the full Stars of Akarios and the Ships of Akarios and all of that. So if you look at what people are paying for this versus what they got back on the secondhand market, most people are taking a bit of a hit. Which means if you're fine with the secondhand market, I recommend trying to hunt down a copy on the secondhand market, even if you're getting the new stuff over here on this campaign. Then go ahead and get the new stuff if you want. Again, it may not hold its value, but at least get the base game on the secondhand market if you're fine, you know, saving $30, $40 in order to get it used and also get it possibly sooner as well to be able to dive into it. So I don't think it's going to be one that holds its value, which means the main reason to get this if you just want to get your hands on the new content. I will say expansion content is always a bit trickier because expansion content is always a little harder to hunt down people who are willing to split things up. Generally, you're going to get all of it or none of it, which means if you are interested in the game, if you're looking at this from like, well, I just want expansion content and I have the base game, there's slightly more of an incentive to get it, but still a balance, and you still probably could hunt it down cheaper elsewhere if you want. Although if you're comparing it to getting it later down the road, as far as if you're comparing to getting it new, then getting it on crowdfunding is a good deal. You may as well get it there. But if you're comparing it to secondhand market, this is one that has not held its value. Moving on over here, we have Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, episodes 3 and 4. 479,000 euro raised, 2,800 backers, 11 days to go. This is, well, the third and fourth episodes of Perseverance. And just for a quick quick overview of the game system, this is coming to you from Mind Clash Games, and Perseverance, despite being called 3 and 4, are completely standalone games. Effectively, the Perseverance series of games is games 1 and 2, which come together but are both separate games, and 3 and 4, which come together but are both separate games. You can see how people might be confused if they don't know what's going on already here. Because it's hard enough to say, hey, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are completely separate. You have to additionally convince people that they're completely separate after explaining how they come together. So, there's that aspect. And it's so easy, by the way. It's so easy for us to forget. People who know what's going on, we know what's going on. But it's so easy to forget that someone might come to this and immediately bounce off the page because they're like, oh, this is like something new for a game. It's always interesting to remember that whether it's crowdfunding in general, whether it's a specific game, sometimes you know what's going on, but others around you don't. And it's such an interesting balance to figure that out. It's one of the reasons, like, I'll get people who ask, like, hey, why do you say in front of every game, you know, you work for Gamefound, you did paid coverage around the game? And the answer is because most of you know that. Most of you know and have learned to trust me over the years. Most of you understand that I do give disclaimers where I can, and I try to give as much information as possible. Some of you are even irritated by that. But there's also that person who's jumping to my video for the first time, and they might not know that, and they might not see that, and they might feel, you know, 2 weeks later they might watch another video and see something and be like, why didn't he tell us? Because he didn't realize that I have told you. So you always have to approach that balance of how do you ensure that everyone's getting the information they need without just completely throwing too much information to people all the time. It's an interesting conversation for another video and another day. Point is, Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, episodes 3 and 4, this continues the narrative of the universe. So why are they called 1, 2, 3, 4? Well, they all have an interesting storyline. You know, Perseverance 1, you land on the beach. Perseverance 2, you're conquering the beach and trying to set up, you know, base camps and all that. Perseverance 3, which is going to be in this campaign, you're learning to ride and control the dinosaurs. Perseverance 4, you're actually diving deeper into the island, utilizing the various dinosaurs you've actually held on your side and taking down the enemies you're facing off in this epic climactic ending to the saga. But again, each episode in the saga is its completely self-contained Eurogame that has nothing to do with the others mechanically. Not saying they don't share overlap, but it's not a sequence, it's not a campaign, it's not whatever, it's just its own thing. And now that I've sat there and told you that, I'll have to explain in a second that they actually have an expansion that does turn it into a single self-contained thing. Sort of. Not really, but sort of. Anyways, that's kind of what's going on as far as Perseverance over here. This is going to be episodes 3 and 4, giving you new content, new miniatures, all of that. Let's go ahead and scroll down directly down to what you can buy over here. We have over here, we have Perserverance Castaway Chronicles Episodes 3 and 4 Standalone Edition. That's going to be €155, and the point of this is this over here, the Standalone Edition is for people who don't want 1 and 2, or who they have 1 and 2, but they don't want to utilize components from 1 and 2. Effectively, despite everything I just said, there are some shared components between the systems, and if you're willing to go ahead and reach into one box to grab stuff, you can save €30, although there's more options on the table for you. For €125, you get Episodes 3 and 4. But yes, you'll have to reach into the first 2 boxes and pull out the components that are being reused, which may or may not be a pain, although there's another option for you, because if we skip some of that stuff and go straight to over here, the empty shared component box for €10, this gives you the opportunity to do these shared components in a single separate box. That way you can grab 1 and 2 off the shelf, you can grab 3 and 4 off the shelf, but you can also just grab the shared box, whichever one you're grabbing, which means you don't have to go rooting around in one box for shared components, which again, these are midway solutions, so there's different options on the table as far as what you do. I imagine more people are going to be going, no, actually I'm wrong. I was going to say I'm imagining more people are going to be going for the standalone, but I guess not. More people are just going for the shared. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I hate rooting through components from other games to be able to play a game. I find that so, and especially if it's a large box like Perseverance, that just seems irritating, but hey, if it works for you, it works for you. But that's going to be Perseverance, the first 2 boxes over here. The all-in over here is going to be €300, giving you everything you need for Perseverance. It's going to be additionally this expansion over here. We have the standalone all-in for €330, which basically gives you the all-in, but again, there's duplicated components over there. And then we have down here, which also is interesting as well, because the all-in, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. That might be a mentality aspect of all or nothing. Because when you look at the individual base pledges, we have 877 going for the standalone, and double that going for the all for the saving €30. But when you scroll down over here, that's reversed. We have double the people paying the extra €30. That has to be a mentality of the all-in, right? That has to be some sort of fluke, because that's such a reversal as far as, that's a 4-to-1 ratio as far as the difference you're seeing in what people are choosing. I wonder. It has to be an all-in thing. It has to be a perception of the getting. I'm getting sidetracked by this fascinating little thing in the video. But anyways, past that, we have the various expansions over here. So we have the various language packs, that extra box over here. We have the standard edition upgrade pack. So if you didn't get those for those extra dinosaurs from the first edition, there's that available as well. That's basically what you have going on over here throughout the course of the campaign. There's a lot more as well to go into. There's gameplay videos, there's tutorials, there's overviews, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's 2 full separate giant Euro games, fun Minecraft games going on here. Lots of premium components, lots of fun things going on, lots of teaches, playthroughs, everything going on for Perseverance and all of that. And they do point out, and I should give them credit, they point out somewhere throughout this campaign over here that in past campaigns they haven't asked for more money. They don't have 5 campaigns floating at once. They basically point out, saying kind of, you know, in small little paragraphs, saying, hey, we're one of the good ones. We're not, you know, trying to like have too many campaigns floating, and we've never asked you for money, so we're doing a good job. And to their credit, they are. That's true. I do believe in giving companies credit when they actually do a good job, and it's very hard for a company to too loudly pat themselves on the back and say, hey, by the way, we've never done anything wrong, we've never asked for more money, so we want credit for that, even though that's just basically doing what you told people you do. And it's very hard to give too much credit to yourself, and so whenever a company does remind me that they actually did that, I usually like to highlight it a little bit more and say, yes, they did that thing, and they can't scream it from the mountains, but I could. Well, not scream it from the mountains, my voice is already going, but I can slightly louder than them say it so you can hear it and see that. Anyways, that's going to be Perseverance Castaway Chronicles Episodes 3 and 4. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Not based on the first one, unfortunately. If you look at the first one, if you look at the second-hand market of how it's done, unfortunately, Perseverance Castaway Chronicles, despite it being a game that I thought would hold its value, because usually games from Minecraft, their deluxe editions on Kickstarter, on crowdfunding, they usually do great as far as holding their value. That hasn't been true with the Perseverance Episode 1 and 2. I think that it's been well received overall, but there must be some disconnect on either the price or the value or something about it, because it hasn't done as well as other Minecraft games have done as far as the cost of the game and then how well it landed and was received down the road. And since this is a continuation of the series, that is almost certainly going to be the same problem you have over here, where even, again, the tricky part here is you can be someone who plays Episode 3 and 4 while never having touched 1 and 2, but you're still signing up for 2 games, and I imagine it's just a small subset of an audience, but either way, point is that you can go ahead and get this one, and it'll likely be the cheapest option if you're looking at traditional retail or their online store. But if you're looking at will it hold its value, will it not? Unfortunately, based on the past campaign, I'd have to say you're probably going to take a hit on this one. Moving on, we have Calimala. Calimala from Alley Cat Games. And I'm going to go ahead and actually have a cut briefly, because I just need water badly. I'm back, and we have Calimala from Alley Cat Games. Calimala is going to be a reprint of, well, Calimala, with artwork by Ian O'Toole, a bunch bunch of modular expansions added, Calimala is going to have you moving tokens around the board, trying to place them on top of others to be able to activate the actions on both sides of the stack of tokens, being mindful of the area control that will trigger as you pop down your opponent's lowest token onto the various board as you try to get area control, activate abilities, and ultimately outwit your opponents in this Euro game. The expansion over here is going to be a refreshed version of the game. It's going to have improvements in the quality of the actual components, so, you know, thicker tiles, double layered boards, although that might depend on whether you gain the basic or deluxe version of the game. It's going to have a bunch of expansions added as well, so if you want a bunch of modular expansions, we have Intrigue expansion, we have component upgrades, we have the Collector's Edition. Do we have a bunch of expansions or only one? I thought it was, maybe it might be only one. I might be mixing up another thing that has, no, there's other games that have multiple expansions today. This one has only the Intrigue expansion over here, additional base game balancing, all of that in the new version of the game. Over here, we're going to be looking at £38 for the basic version of the game, the retail edition that you'll be able to get later at retail. And then we have the £47 for the deluxe version of the game, which will give you all the extras over there, the double-layered player boards, the exclusive stretch goals, deluxe components, all of that for the games. And then we have the Collector's Edition, which gives you all of that, in all of the things we just covered in the deluxe edition, but also bringing you the custom printed card sleeves and neoprene mat as well. That's going to be £69 up from $47, so you're paying basically a net, what is that, what's the math on that, 22 extra pounds for the neoprene mat and the card sleeves for the game. Which brings us to the whole should you back or should you not, will it hold its value, all of that. And this one probably yes, but not for sure. Alley Cat Games has had a few of these bigger box deluxe editions. They've had Audubon and was it Arborea or Arbrium, whatever it was. They've had two games in their slightly more mid-weight, heavyweight Euro games with this style of deluxe edition games. And the past two have done decently enough. If you look specifically at the deluxe edition of the game, that is, not the retail. But they've done decently enough on the deluxe editions, which means Calimala, there is always a question mark because reprinted games, or when you take a game and you bring it back, remastered, all of that, that's always a slightly different conversation because there's less of the excitement of something new and people can look at the old one and get a gauge, you know, how well was it received. So there's always a bit more of a question mark. They could do better or worse, so it's certainly not a guarantee, but I'd say there's a decent chance this one will hold its value given the past two in the series, specifically if you're looking at the deluxe edition of the game. If you just want the retail, then wait for retail. Then we have Misty Waters at the Rural Edge. €102,000 raised, 564 backers, 17 days left to go. Misty Waters is going to be a sandbox game featuring, well, being a ship, and not really a pirate, but a ship. You're wandering around the board, you're facing off against other players, you're facing off against various beasts and the Kraken and whatever things in the deep sea. I do highly recommend watching the video, by the way. The video is very engaging, it'll pull you in, it'll make you want the game a bit more. But past that, this is going to be a sandbox game. If you play games like Merchants and Marauders, like Xia, Legend of a Drift System, any of these styles of games, Western Legends, it's very much going to have that approach to it as far as giving you a bunch of ways to get points and a whole bunch of ways in which you can try to go ahead and earn those points as you go through the system. The pledge levels over here are going to be €210 for the all-in, which gives you a ton of premium upgrades and components, a lot of things over there. You don't need to spend €210 to get this game, but you are going to be looking at €79 for the core box before you get into any of the various expansions. Like the Kraken over here is going to be €59 for the expansion, but it's not just the Kraken over here. If you click through, you'll see a whole lot of extras being added here, a lot more than just that one miniature or a few miniatures you see in the picture. So there are more things being added here in the individual expansion, so make sure to click through to see what you're actually getting, because there is a decent amount of stuff that you actually do get for that €210, although again €79 is the entry point to be able to dive into Misty Waters and see if it's for you. There's a bunch of stretch goals, a bunch of additions, content, upgrades, things like that across the course of the game. Tons of things you can spend as far as upgrades, you know, dice trays and play mats and various bases for the ships and player treasure chests and all these various things, inserts, metal markers, a bunch of stuff you can go ahead and get for this if you want all the various extras. As far as the should you back or should you not will hold its value, this one's definitely more of a question mark, harder to say for sure. €79 is not cheap for a base game of anything. I don't think the components alone seem to justify that, just visually just what you're looking at, but at the end of the day, the scope and breadth of this game, you are looking to be in that range of a Xia Legend of a Drift System kind of system, and so to that end, the price is definitely not the cheapest, but also not the most expensive either. Of course, you have to add in shipping as well, which will bump you up to like basically looking at $100 to get your hands on the game for the base pledge, which is a lot, and that might be why you only have 565 backers. So instinctively, I do think this one is more of a risk. Instinctively, I think there's not enough demand, there's not enough people who are jumping on this, and I think that'll translate into the second-hand market as well. But if the game is good enough, it might change how that interaction goes. And in general, when you have a game that is well enough received, that will always change how the second-hand market does, as there's enough buzz. And this is a larger game in the breadth and scope, and there's not that many sandbox games out there. There's only a handful of real sandbox games that have been decently well received out there in the board game space. So it's not facing off against every single Euro and every single worker placement and every single cooperative dungeon crawler out there. It's a much smaller level of competition, which means if it does a good job, it can stand out in that sense. So definitely a risk, although I still instinctively think it is less likely to hold its value. Moving on, we have Wild Duo over here from Treacer Games. They brought you Zoo Tycoon last year. This is 17 days to go, 506 backers, $32,000 raised, and Wild Duo is a set of 5 different games, a set of 5 abstract games, completely separate. I mean, they're all in the same box, but separate components, separate boards, separate abstract game systems. I have a full review on my channel. You can check it out, going through the various abstracts, how they all operate, what I think about all of those. But basically, it's a set of abstract games. There's not many more ways to say that. It's just a bunch of abstract. It's 5 distinct abstract games, all giving you a different challenge, all for the price of 49 euro, I think it was, around $39 for the game over here to be able to get your hands on just a set of 5 different abstract systems. There's also the elephant over here. If you want the deluxe pledge over here, you get that little hand-knitted elephant for $67 instead, or you can just buy it as a separate add-on if you want to get extras or more of those. So if you want that adorable handmade plush elephant, that's available as well. Then of course you can get multiple copies of the game at the same time. I do want to give them props before we go into anything else. I want to give them a lot of props for the content on the page over here. If you scroll down, they have this little thing over here which I love. Reviews for which we paid money with are marked with an asterisk. This does not mean that we bought the opinion, only that we compensated the effort. I love that. I have had, for a long time, I've had a pet peeve around the nature of media on a crowdfunding page. And this applies both to the general videos, but also to the testimonials. The fact that you have testimonials and videos, and they're mixed in and mixed up as far as what is paid content and what is not. There is a huge difference between a paragraph of 3 sentences that says, you know, Wild Duo was a great game, I'm really excited to play it. There's a huge difference for the audience to know whether that's came from somebody who was doing paid content or somebody who was just covering the game. All the time, audiences have to make their determination what matters to them and what doesn't. But the biggest thing is giving them that information so they can decide for themselves. The reason I do those disclaimers every video is not to say that I'm biased. Well, I am biased, but it's not to say that the opinion is no longer trustworthy. It's to give you the information you need to decide whether those are factors for you. It's one of the reasons whenever we as Board Game Co. do any paid content and the publisher asks for a testimonial, usually I say no, because I don't want that mixed in without people knowing where that came from and what the source is. At least in the video, if you watch the video, we say very clearly in the first 3 seconds, whatever, this is, you know, paid content and all that. And so I love that. I love that they're taking that level of transparency. I hope it's something we see adopted. I mean, I'm seeing it one time here, so I'm not holding my breath right now. Although it is worth noting, we have no limited pledges this week, so yay, I guess. But anyways, yeah, I love it. Props to them to taking that initiative of being completely transparent. And again, it's not a criticism towards people who are doing paid content. Right now at Board Game Co., we do paid content on the channel. Most of our content is still free. Most reviews, impressions, unboxings, topicals, these videos, most of the stuff on the channel is still free. But we do paid content. I have no problem with that being tagged as such because I want the viewer to know at a glance what information not has been bought, but rather has been affected by the transfer of money so that you can decide where and how that bothers you. But either way, props to Treacer for that. Past that, as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? And by the way, this is unpaid. We did not paid content on this page. But anyways, as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I'm a little skeptical that it will. I think that there's 2 different sides of this. The fact that you get 5 different abstract games, and they're pretty solid overall. They're not my favorite abstract games, not by a long shot, but the price point of getting 5 abstract games for $40, that's certainly not bad. Well, you have to factor in shipping, of course, so it's a little bit more, but it's certainly not bad for the actual price point of good abstract games. But I just think abstract games tend to be a harder sell. They don't tend to have as much demand in general. I mean, not famously, Mythic Mischief from IV Games, their least popular game is an abstract game. In general, abstract games like Santorini is going to be like one of the most notable exceptions for an incredibly popular abstract game. Don't get me wrong, Mythic Mischief has done great, but compared to the other games, it's done less great or whatnot. So yeah, I think this is just harder to get that level of demand for an abstract, and I think that will translate into the second-hand market as well. I don't see people paying, you know, once you factor in the shipping, I don't see people paying the $55 or whatever it's going to cost to reimburse you for this game if it's not a game system that works for you. Moving on, we have Kelp, Shark vs. Octopus, a 2-player asymmetrical game of a shark trying to hunt down an octopus as the octopus either tries to eat its food or just wear out the shark. 5,600 backers, $400,000 raised, 22 days to go. They, by the way, they're doing great on the campaign. Also, props to them. I'm trying to I'm pausing because I'm like, I don't know if this is my information to convey or not, but I'll convey it. I guess I'll convey it, and hopefully I'm not getting in trouble here. But I know for a fact from talking to the creators, because they've reached out to me when I go on my rants about limited pledges. They've reached out and said, hey, the company we're working with is trying to get us to do limited pledges, but we don't want to do that because we want to respect and engage with the audience in the right way. So kudos to them. Kudos to them for, again, showing you that you don't need to actually engage in some of the stuff that people do to be successful. $400,000 raised, 5,600 backers. This is going to possibly cross $1 million. I'm skeptical across $1 million. I say more closer to the $600,000 to $700,000 range. But either way, it's a massive success for a 2-player abstract game. That's a limited market. This is not a 3-player game. It's not a 1-person game. It's a 2-person abstract game, which means not really abstract, asymmetrical game, but it's a very limited market, and they're doing incredibly well. So props to them for doing everything right and not having to manipulate and abuse their audience along the way. That's going to be Undergrove Games over here. This is going to be a game of Shark vs. Octopus. I've played the game. I think it's fantastic. Lots of people play the game. I know from people who played it, they thought it's fantastic. It's really well done as far as the systems at play, as far as having the sharks slowly try to move around the board, and they're completely asymmetrical. The octopus is engaging with deck building. Meanwhile, the shark is trying to deal with a degree of tableau building and leveling themselves up as they place dice onto the board to try to navigate their currents and to slowly pounce and then eventually eat the octopus, or try to eat the octopus, and hopefully the octopus can escape, because let's be honest, we don't want the octopus being eaten, unless of course the other person playing is the shark, in which case that's a whole different conversation. Past that, the pledge levels over here are going to be €45 for the standard edition of the game. It's going to be €60 for the deluxe edition of the game, which is going to give you upgraded components, and specifically, let's scroll down over here. The standard edition of the game is getting everything you're seeing here. All the cards, the beautiful octopus cards, the thrilling shark cards, the custom blocks, the shark miniature, all that's present no matter what. The deluxe edition is going to give you a deluxe octopus. Now, it's worth noting, this is not a gameplay component. You do not put this on the board because that would kind of make it obvious where your octopus is. Instead, your octopus has to hide abstractly behind the tiles on the board. So this is purely a decorative element, which is fun. I'd like to have it to compensate for that shark. The shark gets to move around the board and looks pretty. I want that octopus. And of course, when you are found and engaged with a fight, you have to put the octopus on the board for those 3 seconds that the fight's occurring, because it makes for a great photo, really. But then past that, you're also going to get this deluxe coin over here, which just can track whether you're currently holding 4 or 5 cards. It's a thing that can happen in the game as you upgrade your octopus. It's going to give you translucent dice, giving you more of a visual ocean feel to the game. It's going to give you the bag over here. That's going to be all the stuff you get for the deluxe edition. So you're paying an extra $49 to $65, an extra $16 to get all of those extras over there. Then you have the deluxe bundle over here, the $73, so basically an extra $8. That's going to give you the Brilliant Behaviors expansion, which is a set of 4 different modular expansions for the game. Haven't played with any of those, certainly want to play with those. My biggest thing was that the game can feel a bit samey on the arc as you go through it. It can run a little long, so you could have 45 minutes to an hour sessions, and it could be a little repetitive in the cycle you go. So I definitely want to see more content, and I'm excited about the Brilliant Endeavors expansion because we're going to get the jellyfish over here. We're also going to get the zones, we're going to get the coconut, and we're going to get the dens. Do you remember the coconut? Remember its leaves? The island gives you what you need. We also have over here, down here, we have custom card sleeves on the dice tray, and we have the mini expansion, the new pursuits, featuring objectives for the octopus and the shark to complete throughout the game. Only the first player to complete these goals will receive a powerful boost. And then we have the Brilliant Behaviors for €15. If you get the all-in bundle over there, it's going to be cheaper over there because you're only getting for €8 extra, but you also have to go ahead and get some of the extras which you may not have wanted, so there's that trade-off over there. And that's going to be basically what you're looking at for Kelp, Shark vs. Octopus, this asymmetric game. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold this value? Also a risk to a degree, but I think less so. My instinct in this, and it's certainly not a guarantee, I think the price point on this is again, it's not a cheap game, nor is it a particularly expensive game, but you're looking at, €65, or more specifically, this €73 really where it's going to be the best possible value, because you're getting the deluxe components that are harder to get, you're getting that expansion, Brilliant Endeavors, at a slightly cheaper price point because it's all bundled together. So overall, I do think that the Kelp Deluxe Bundle is the best price point to go ahead and get your hands on this game if you're not looking at just going pure retail. But of course, once you factor in the price point of the game, the price point of the extras, also the price point of shipping, it's still not cheap. This is a game, if your goal is to just try out Kelp vs. Octopus, wait for retail. This will have retail availability. Yes, they did the same thing that every campaign does. Hey, we don't know if it's going to retail, but to be fair to them, they also didn't know how successful this campaign would be, and you can't make that prediction early on. When you're bringing your game to crowdfunding, more often than not, it's very hard to sit there and say, yep, we got partners lined up and we definitely know we're going to retail. More often than not, that is a true statement because it depends on how well your campaign is done. But I'll say confidently, this game will be in retail because any game that has 5,000 backers, someone is working with them. Someone is picking them up. Someone is going to make sure this is on a retail shelf because it clearly is a popular game that people will want to get their hands on. And to that end, yes, it will be in retail. And if you just want the cheapest version of the game, just wait for retail, buy it then. But if you do get the all-in, I am skeptical. I'm not skeptical. I am I'm inclined to believe that it'll probably hold its value, but it's not a guarantee. That $73 plus the shipping is just going to push it to a price point where it's still a bit of a gamble, but I think that the popularity of the game will make it so that people will want it, and so I'm going to lean towards yes, but definitely a risk. Take that into account as you go through that. Moving on over here, we have Machines to the Sky, $12,550 raised and 291 backers, 23 days to go. Machines to the Sky has the world slowly ending as players try to work their way into these various rocket ships that are heading to space, while they try to keep it a secret from society around them, while they try to encourage the favor of various patrons in the game who will help you as they try to curry favor with you to be able to get onto those ships to the sky. There's also going to be a solo mode as well. The game's competitive, you're going head to head with other players, but there is a solo mode as well as you go through it. It's going to be coming from the Moon Grill. That's going to be at $44 for the full game. It's going to be $69 for the limited deluxe edition early bird over here, and that's going to be, oh no, wait 1 second. I apologize. I said there's no limited pledges. I may have lied. Did I lie? 1 second. I'm not sure yet. No, that's okay. I think we're fine. I said no limited pledges. I missed this one. But I think we are still fine with limited pledges. They have the picture listed as limited to the first 300 copies, which means I think this is a genuine limited as opposed to an ongoing lie. To be very clear, if you've watched my rant, and I did a full video on this last week, but my problem with limited pledges, the concept of saying, hey, there's only 100 of these, and then changing the number, my problem isn't the idea of limited pledges. My problem is when you lie about the amount, so you create a false sense of limited pledges. The idea of saying, hey, first come, first serve, I'm okay with that. I'm just not okay with it when you say first come, first serve. Just kidding, now that you're here, we're actually opening the doors to anyone, but we gotcha, that's my problem. So I think this one's safe. I think we should be fine. But anyways, we have the Moon Gun, Machines to the Sky over here. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I'm skeptical that it will. The price point's not cheap, and the fact that you only have 300 people backing the campaign so far just means it's harder to say that there'll be any realistic demand. On the flip side, as usual, when you have this few backers, this is one that genuinely will have that question of how much is the retail availability, will it show up, will it not, so it's harder to say. So if you want to guarantee it, get it on crowdfunding, but if you're questioning whether it'll hold its value or not, probably not in this one. 2 campaigns left. We have Wizards of the Grimoire Shifting Sands, 372 backers, 24 days to go. This is going to be more content for Wizards of the Grimoire, a game that I love. Now, full disclaimer, Wargame Co. has done paid content on the game in the past, but it's been a while ago. Devin did paid content around the game, but since then, I covered the expansion for them for free because I just reached out and said, hey, I love the game, I've played the game, and want to cover this expansion for the channel. So, I did unpaid content on this one, specifically because of how much I enjoy this one, and boy, do I enjoy this. I played 2 games of it today, just for context. Like, this is a good game that I really enjoy. If you like that MTG feel, this game will crack that, scratch that itch, but it does so in a way that's not overwhelming. It doesn't require you to know tons of cards, tons of characters, building out decks. This is a very simple system that is just very elegant as far as trying to find the combinations of how things work together. The appeal of Shifting Sands, though, is specifically that it adds 70 more unique cards to the game, which means if you thought you were seeing some of the same patterns, just mix these cards into your existing set, and you just have tons of cards to play with, tons of unique cards, and you can only build out in any given game. You only have 6 cards at a time, and usually, in most games, you're probably not going to see more than 7, maybe 8 cards touching your own tableau in an individual game. And many games, it'll just be the maximum of 6. You'll never actually cycle things out. Which means the way you combine 6 cards from sets of like 140-ish cards, I don't know exactly how many it is, it might be 125, whatever the total card count is, there's a lot going on here as far as the ways you can combine to build it your efficient deck and the ways things combine together. I think it's a phenomenal game. I think it's very simple and easy to pick up. It's available on BGA if you want to see it. Apparently the win ratio of, first and second player, they've tracked across 20,000 games, and it's basically it's like a 48 to 52%. It does favor the second player, just in case you want to know that for the future. But either way, as far as the game itself, I just think it's a great game. I think it's a great game. If you like any kind of head-to-head deck builder, not deck builder, any head-to-head card game system, I think this is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's just this and Radlands. They're amongst 2 of my favorite in the genre. As far as the game itself, it's going to run you around $26 to get your hands on the base game, around $26 to get your hands on the expansion. The expansion is standalone. It has a few new mechanics as relics and some other stuff like that, but basically, it's a standalone game. You have the mana cards, you have the cards, the the cards themselves, and then you can mix them together to just have more card variability if you want that. Both these are going to come with a 10 extra pack of additional spells, so you just have additional card variety in there. That's going to be 26 for Shifting Sands and 26 for the Wizards of the Coast, Wizards of the Grimoire, not Coast, base game, and then it's $51 if you want to get both of them. You're saving roughly $1 if you get both of them, although it's currency conversion, so it's actually not as clear as all that. But either way, that's going to be basically what you get over the game, and of course you have to pay shipping as well. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Not as much, unfortunately. Practically speaking, this is one of those game systems that the biggest issue it's going to have is it's a small box game with a cheap price point in the game, and the shipping is going to be a factor, and there's not a ton of demand for the game. Until I played this one, but the short version, just to give you some context behind the scenes, he reached out and said, can you review my game? I said, hey, you know, dueling games are a dime a dozen, and I was nicer than that, but dueling games are a dime a dozen. There's so many of them, and I'm usually not impressed by somebody who says, hey, I have a card-driven system, and I want you to try it out. Too often, they're not that good, and so I was not inclined. Later, they reached out to do some paid covers in the channel. Devin did it. Devin talked about how good the game was. Then Jenna was talking about how good the game was, and I heard more people talking about how good the game was. And so I tried it after that, and then I really thought the game was excellent and have since played the game. But my point of that is, if you're someone who's like, another one of these, that was my reaction too. That was 100% my reaction. I did not want to cover it. I did not want to whatever, until later I saw that people were actually interested, and I gave it a shot, and wow, it's good. So I'm going to be a proponent of the game. I'm going to be talking about the game. I'm going to be trying to convince you to get your hands on a copy of the game if you're the target audience for, you know, a two-player head-to-head dueling system. But if you are, this game is really well done. One of my favorites. Again, to me, Radlands and this are the games that scratch that itch without being overwhelming in the amount of content. But, like I said, probably won't hold its value, but if you are interested in it, it may well be your best opportunity to get your hands in it, especially if you're getting both of them. Moving on, and lastly, we have Undergrove. Jeez, with the words here. I'm like doing Wizards of the Coast and Underdog. Those are the two campaigns we're covering last today. To be fair to me, it is 3 o'clock in the morning. Undergrove, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave and Mark Whitten. Get back to your roots. For context, these two back and not to backs, like, they're basically all day Sunday projects. I have to go over like 20 campaigns and just go over every single thing on the page, and to condense it all into actually absorbable information while understanding enough about how the games operate and all the pledge levels and all the content. They are all day projects for me, which is why I'm sometimes up till 3 in the morning on Sunday night filming these videos for you. Anyways, I have a Patreon. I have a Patreon, by the way, link down below. Feel free to jump on that. Appreciate all of you. 4,700 backers, 25 days to go. $291,000 raised on this from Undergrove, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave and Mark Whitten. Elizabeth Hargrave, famous for Wingspan. This is going to be, I think, her third game. I mean, no, but she might have had other games. She had Mariposas, and she has this. I don't know if she's had other games before or not. But either way, this is going to be Undergrove over here. This is a game exploring the relationship between mushrooms and trees as you go through this game and try to basically efficiently build out your relationship between the mushrooms and the trees in the system, putting down various tiles into the ecosystem, gathering the resources you need, and ultimately building out the trees, which are specific, the Douglas fir tree in the Pacific Northwest of North America. So another nature-driven game. That's been her genre till now. She's done Wingspan, then Mariposas, which explores the fluttering of butterflies, and then now we have Undergrove as the third game, or possibly third game, from Elizabeth Hargrave and Mark Whitten. As far as the pledge levels over here, we're going to have $39 for the basic version of the game. That's going to be the standard version of the game. I believe it's giving you something. It's also including the Whispering Woods micro expansion, so it's going to be giving you that as well, though. So it's not pure retail, it's retail plus. Then we also have over here the Mycologist expansion for $69, which is going to be giving you an all wood version of the game. I mean, all wood. Don't take it seriously, not all wood. The rulebook's not going to be wood, but all the tiles, including all of these tiles, are going to be upgraded to wood. All the various tokens will be upgraded to wood. You're going to get a completely wooden version. Even that Whispering Woods expansion is going to be upgraded to wood in the game. That's going to be for $69. So over here, again, quick refresher over here, $39 for the standard version of the game with the various tokens, the boards, the various tiles you have, all those various things. And over here we have this expansion over here, which just puts you for $69, all the components being upgraded to wood in the game, including the wooden tiles over here, including the tiles for the game being upgraded to wood, which is a lot. That's going to be a lot of wood stuff going on in your game. We also have the expansion over here, the miniature Whispering Woods expansion, and there's also a holiday tree extra if you subscribe to the mailing list. And then there's like an early start guide. Where was there? There's something over here. We have the quick sprout guides. These are going to be great ways to show players walking through your first 4 turns in the game, so you can just basically read this and then understand how the game plays by walking through a quick start guide. I think these things are fantastic when games have them. They're usually excellent ways of getting people up and running running on a game system that avoids skipping the rulebook very easily if you have something like this, or at least having to barely reference the rulebook instead. That's going to be Undergrove over here. So this one seems to have been a success so far. Again, we have currently, what was it again? We had $300,000 raised and 4,700 backers. It's always hard to say. AEG is like all over the place with their campaigns. Sometimes they have campaigns that do like $30,000, and other times they have campaigns that do like $1 million. They are all over the place as far as where their games land on the audience. But I think at 300,000, this is definitely a success. I don't know how big a success, what they're expecting, but this is definitely a success. Elizabeth Hargrave did Wingspan, which has sold over 1 million copies, and so 4,700 is a good start, but certainly not an ending to that conclusion. But she also did Mariposas, which I don't think was as well received. So, you know, not every game will ever be a hit, and this one looks like it's primed on the right start to that journey, but ultimately we'll see where it goes. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? The standard edition, no. Wait for retail if you're getting that. Even with the extras, it's just not worth it. The price point of this versus getting it at retail and saving a lot of money in it, because the cost of the game plus the shipping, you'll get much cheaper at retail. Versus if you are getting that all wood edition, I think there's a decent chance that holds its value. Similar to Kelp, it's certainly not a guarantee. Once you factor in the price of shipping and the game, it's definitely more of a question mark. But also similar to Kelp, you have a game that has 4,700 people interested in the game, and it's a game that's going to be coming with the associated name of Elizabeth Hargrave, and unlike Kelp, this will likely have a much higher retail presence. The fact that it's an AEG game means it's already guaranteed to be supported at retail and have a large presence, which means this game will get out on the wilds, and then people will learn about the game, and if it's a halfway good game, there'll be people who are trying to hunt down copies of the deluxe content for the game. People will play it and they're like, oh my gosh, I missed the Kickstarter. I wish I had the wooden edition of the game. And so I think there's a very strong chance that whatever degree of chance there was on Kelp, I think there's that, times 0.5, whatever it is, 1.5 as much chance over here on the Mycologist Pledge, just because of the fact that it's going to have that much more availability, and people will be trying the game and experiencing the game, and they'll be trying to go on eBay and hunting down your wooden copy of the game because it didn't work for you. And so if you are someone who's interested in the game but unsure what to get or whether it'll hold its value or not, I think the Mycologist Pledge is a fairly safe pledge, but still not a guarantee, but a fairly safe pledge if you are interested in this game and want to experience it and are questioning whether it's one that you can get your money back down the road or not. And with that, let's go ahead and go into our picks of the week. Our picks of the week, as usual, we have a personal interest pick of the week and we have a value pick of the week. And to that end, they're going to be the games we just covered. Our value pick of the week is going to be Undergrove, because I just think Kelp is a decent chance. I think that you have what was the Calimala as well from Alley Cat Games. There's a decent chance in that, but ultimately I think that Undergrove is the strongest chance of a pledge that will hold this value if you are getting it on crowdfunding now versus getting it down the road. And then as far as my personal interest pick of the week, definitely Wizards of the Coast, with Kelp coming in a close second, but Wizards of the Coast, definitely Wizards of the Grimoire. Jeez, 3 o'clock in the morning. 3:10 in the morning. Wizards of the Grimoire is going to be my pick of the week as far as my personal interest pick of the week. I think this game is fantastic, and I'm excited to add a whole roster of new cards to the mix to further mix up this game that I have continued to enjoy, continue to dive into, and continue to find different ways to combine things, and I'm excited for even more ways to combine things that Shifting Sands will bring to the table. And that's what we have, which brings us to the campaigns coming up next week. We have a few coming up. We have DC's, which is going to be the big one over here, with 1,400 people following the campaign. DC's, a Zombicide game, is going to be launching very shortly, so stay tuned, keep your wallet safe out there. And then over on Gamefound, we have Singularity, giving you another card battling system. I think it's I'm not sure if it's specifically 2-player or not, but Singularity is trying to give you the card systems of a collectible card game, but with much more control over your destiny, as well as less collectability at the same time. And that's going to be everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Wargame Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to go to bed. If I have 5 cookies, and you ask me for 2 cookies, how many cookies do I have? 5 cookies. I still have 5 cookies.